earliest memory, I've seen and heard things other people didn't. I'm not crazy, just gifted, my grandma said. You come from a long line, I was told. I wish that I had asked her, from a long line of what? Looking back, the lies began there. Because I was adopted, how would she know? My parents told me there was no information about my birth mother, except that it was the 60s, and women didn't have babies out of wedlock. A bastard, she meant, but didn't say being a proper lady and all. Growing up, most of my friends were boys, but even that changed when their hormones kicked in. Looking back, overall, I was, and still am, more comfortable around guys. I know now that most of my past lives were male. I've struggled with being female. Either way, I was a bully target. When I was around 8 years old, I walked the aisle and got saved. The preacher was the hellfire and brimstone, get fired up, yelling kind. He was preaching out of Revelation, and I marched down that aisle and I said, "Preacher, I don't want to go to hell." I said, when it all happens, I'm going to go toe-to-toe with the devil and I'm going to whoop him. The preacher just laughed and I repented of my grievous sins. Then the next week, I did it all again. For 3 weeks, I was walking that aisle. Finally, the preacher said, "You only got to do it once." After church, I was on my way to the bus, and there he was. "I thought you were Catholic," I asked him. Then he spoke to me for the very first time. "That's a bold statement you made, especially for a little girl. We're going to see if that works out for you or not." Man, he had the smoothest voice I had ever heard. And he was very handsome. Now, at this point, I didn't know that he was the devil, but I would soon find out. After that day, I kept seeing him everywhere, at school, at ball practice, and at my ball games too. He would just stare at me with his blazing eyes. Then he would just smile. He was always at church. Maybe that's why I didn't see him as a threat. Sometimes he would bring guests, and they would stare at me too. So here's the quick version. Started smoking pot and cigarettes at age 11, cocaine by 15, married at 16, 2 babies by 19. Worked 2 jobs, went to college, raised my boys, got divorced after 22 years, had a girlfriend for 8 years, found out I had a brain tumor, ran a trap house, overdosed, died, and I remember every detail of it. The afterlife is real. You are conscious there. So for 56 years, I tried not to see and hear these things. I did a lot of drinking, drugging, and running. Nothing that I tried made them stop. Rehabs, mental hospitals, therapy. Yeah, therapy got me locked up in the state hospital because I said I believed in angels and demons. I tried reasoning with them. I tried helping them go to the light. Prayed, begged, and they still came, one after another. Around 14, I was figuring out the handsome, blazing-eyed man was more than a church deacon. He began to appear in my dreams, my meditations, and my projections. He would say to me, "Don't be afraid, you have a gift. Ghosts need a friend. Just help them out if you can, and if you can't, don't worry about it." There was always someone with me at all times. There were times when I couldn't distinguish who was living and who was a spirit. Some of them were my spirit guides, I was told. Their names were Seth, Elsa, and Eris. I like the name Eris because Eris is my favorite Greek god. There were 2 more ladies who hung back and never got involved. They never spoke to me, they just seemed to watch. Sometimes I would see spirits or ghosts or one of my guides arguing with him. Angels came often and would make him leave if he was talking to me. They didn't like that. Now I know why. He was the devil. But he always came back. I always felt out of place, like I didn't belong. Often I felt not loved or not wanted. I was an outcast, the girl who talked to the dead. My therapist said that I had abandonment and rejection issues because I was given up for adoption. Several times throughout the years I attempted suicide, but I couldn't even get that right. Then, when I did manage to overdose, they brought me back. There was no light, no tunnel, no angels, no loved ones waiting on the shore. There wasn't even any demons. That was the most peace I have ever felt in this lifetime. No pain, no emotion, just peace. But even death rejected me. But I had that few minutes of pure, non-painful existence. I was not afraid of death any longer, and I was not afraid of anything anymore. There has been twice that he did come for me. Both times I was trying to live right. Involved in church and the bus ministry, and not on drugs. Both times I am convinced that he tried to kill me. He has the ability to pull me into his world. I guess I make it easier because I astral project. He only attacks me when I'm trying to live right and stay sober and clean. The first time was in 1985. My husband and I were sleeping, and all of a sudden I was pulled into a projection. I was in the church that I got saved in as a child. The church had red carpet and a balcony. I was in the balcony looking down at the pulpit and altar space. I immediately recognized where I was, and as I stood there looking down, the voice from my gut, my Gemini I call it, told me something wasn't right. It just felt off. Behind the pulpit, where the baptistry would normally be, was a solid wall, no baptistry. That's odd, I thought. Then that gnawing, churning feeling began deep in my gut. There were gold offering plates hanging on that wall, but the pictures, or whatever it was that was made into them, started turning inside the ballpark. Jiminy said run, so I took off. Down the steps I ran as fast as I could. The stairs had 6 steps, then a landing. Then you kind of changed direction, and there was 6 more steps. I fell before I even made the landing. Tumbling onto the landing, I jumped up, and there on the steps below me was the most beautiful, brightest light I have ever seen. I was awestruck. The angel extended his hand, motioning for me to take it. Thank God, angel help. I took a step forward to take its hand, and my Gemini began screaming, "Run! Run!" I turned a corner on the landing again, and bam! There he was. Maybe there's 2 landings, I said in my panicked mind. I realized that I was stuck on the stairs. Every time I made a landing and turned, there he was. Somehow, I managed to get past him and run again. I couldn't breathe. Down the steps, God help me. It was like hitting a wall. And after about 6 times of running into and around him, he became angry. Frustration got the best of him, and the light disappeared, revealing his true identity. I cried out, "Jesus! Jesus, help me!" I seen the holy angels dropping into the stairway like paratroopers, and then I woke up. I was terrified. I was so scared that I woke my husband up and tried to explain to him why I was tripping. I was scared that he was just going to reach right through the wall and snatch me right out of existence. I know that he has the power to do it. I just don't think that he had the authority to do so that night.